Michael, you don't get to say that. That's Dana's thing. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Um, so, as always, I will be responding to questions that were sent in ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. So, if any of you all are in the live chat and you have something you want to ask me, something you want to talk about that you want me to react to, or most especially, if you were going to be generous and throw out a super chat that you want to make sure I acknowledge and don't forget about or miss, please, if at all possible, hold on to all of that stuff until I get through the patron and member questions, because then and only then will I turn my full attention to the live chat. And speaking of super chats, I know she's not going to be here for the show, but right before we went on the air, Debbie dropped a super chat and said, "Hi, everyone. Can't stay. Have the flu. Wanted to say hi. And thanks, Steve, for all he does." And as always, Debbie, I know you're not here to see this, but maybe you'll watch it back later. Thank you very much. And I really appreciate your generosity. Now, let us move into the question and answer portion of the show, or at least the first question and answer portion of the show, with the patron and member questions. So here, let me see, where are they? There they are. Okay. And the first one comes to us from the Energetic Emissary. So I won't get into spoilers in case folks haven't seen it, but the latest Starfleet Academy episode, and by the way, this is episode 5, so it's no longer the latest, but when this question was submitted, it was the latest. So it would be, they're talking about last week's episode, not this week's new episode. Anyway, the latest SFA episode brought me to tears. Seeing that cameo after all this time, I was like, oh, wait, is that? Oh, frack, it is. The ending twist / reveal was fun too. Overall, I love the show so far. What are your thoughts on the episode? Do you consider it remember this pandering like you have before? Can't wait for your end of season review of the show. P.S. The Puppy Bowl definitely had the best halftime show. Did you watch? No, I did not watch anything related to the football game at all. I didn't watch the game. I didn't watch the halftime show. I didn't watch the fucking racist alternative halftime show. I didn't watch the Puppy Bowl. I have no interest in the Super Bowl or the NFL whatsoever. And if I could wave a magic wand and make it all go away forever, I would. Yeah, I thought it was, as far as the Starfleet Academy episode you're referencing. No, I consider it remember this pandering. I was not a fan of it. It's the only episode of the show I've seen so far that I didn't like. Overall, I think the show has been really, really good. I've liked it a lot, and I can say I liked episode 6 a lot. But episode 5, it's fan fiction. It's self-indulgent, pandering, wankish fan fiction. And I don't care for that. And I don't watch Star Trek for that. There were parts of the episode I liked, the parts that were about the characters who are actually characters in this show. I thought some of that was really good. And, it's a very Sam heavy episode. And I love Sam. She's maybe my favorite character, at least my favorite of the cadet characters. I love her. She was great, but no, it was fan fiction. And it was self-indulgent, and I really, really didn't like it. But you obviously liked it, and I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad it works for you. It definitely does not work for me. It is the exact kind of thing I don't want this show or any other Star Trek show to ever, ever, ever do. But I'm glad you liked it. Donovan, hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. Have you been watching Fallout Season 2? I've been enjoying it so far, but found it to be very reliant on fan service and was wondering what you thought of it. I haven't watched it. I didn't watch season 1 either. It just doesn't interest me. Also, I've never played any of the games. So even if it was full of fan service, I wouldn't notice because I never played the games and I don't give a shit. But no, I have not been watching it. Phoebe of Kintsugi Sai. Hello, Steve. I want to copy a question I've heard in a YouTube series lately. The interviewer asks it as the last question, and it's a great one. What's the most important thing that we didn't ask about that we should talk about? I mean, I don't know. Uh, my reaction to the Spider Noir trailer. That's really important. Nobody's asked me about that. Ask me about my reaction to the Spider Noir trailer. Um, General Contact Unit Problem Child. Because of the Epstein files, there's talk about the death of the atheist movement again. What even was/is the atheist movement? Does it include orgs like FFRF that are still going strong and challenging the Trump administration in court? Or does it just mean YouTube shit and the now much declined convention circuit where people congratulate each other for not believing in the tooth fairy while occasionally harassing women? By the way, excellent description. I think people can talk past each other because of this uncertainty of meaning. Well, it's a broad thing. It means all of that. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the atheist movement, the portion of it that briefly kind of broke through a little bit into broader popular culture in the late 2000s, early 2010s, that part of the movement was based around the personalities of people like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris and Daniel Dennett, and the convention circuit and best-selling books and that kind of thing. And then the YouTube portion of it kind of followed in the wake of that. And most of that has been done already. Like, that moment has passed and a lot of people, including myself, who were once part of the atheist movement, no longer care about the atheist movement. Some of it is because, we realized that it was mostly, as you describe it, just a lot of people congratulating each other for getting one question right. And that there was also a lot of really shitty political and gender and racial stuff involved. And a lot of people thought that because they were atheists and because they had seen through, the deception of religion, that therefore they were automatically the most logical and rational people and were correct about everything else. And that led to a lot of gross misogyny and racism in some cases, and other kinds of bigotry and other kinds of prejudice and discrimination. And it really put the movement in a bad light and showed it that actually, no, this isn't a human rights movement. This isn't a serious social reform movement. This is just an ego trip for a lot of people who want to feel like they're smarter than other people without actually having to do any work. But I mean, the Epstein stuff is maybe an additional nail in the coffin, but people knew this shit about Lawrence Krauss already. I mean, the Dawkins thing might be news to some people, but like, people have known that Lawrence Krauss is a piece of shit for a long time. So, that bit of it where people, one of the great leading lights of the atheist movement. No, he's been a piece of shit for a long time, and we've known this. So, like, it's, yeah. I think you put it right. It's the death of the atheist movement again. Now, yes, there is a portion of it that is rather serious and organized, like the FFRF, like the American Humanist Association. There are other organizations like that actually attempt to be serious organizations with a structure and with specific goals and specific things that they advocate for and lobby for. They were part of the atheist movement too, but they continue to exist and continue to do work because they have their own individual reasons to exist and their own individual structures and support systems, and they are not dependent on how many people are going to conventions or how many people are making YouTube videos trying to pwn creationists, etc. Rob C, among the Star Trek series that have concluded so far, how would you rank their, you say season finales, I assume you mean series finales, from best to worst? I'm not going to give you a full ranking of all of them because I don't have super strong feelings about them. I will just say TNG series finale is still by far the best. I would say Classic Trek's finale is the worst, but that feels almost unfair because that wasn't really written as a finale. It was just the last episode that they broadcast, but it's a terrible episode, Turnabout Intruder. I mean, so if we're counting that one, then that one's the worst. If we're not counting that one, then probably Enterprises is the worst. I would rank Deep Space Nine's closer to the top than to the bottom. I would rank Voyager's maybe in the middle, closer to the bottom. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the last episode of Voyager, but it's not as bad as, Turnabout Intruder or These Are the Voyages, the last episode of Enterprise. The last episode of Discovery was disappointing for me. I would rank that one close to the bottom. I feel like the show, with all of its problems and all of its flaws, deserved a way better finale than that. Lower Decks, I don't give a shit about either way. Prodigy didn't really have a series finale because, again, they weren't sure if that was going to be the end or not. But I thought Prodigy ended on a pretty good note. I thought the ending of season 2 of Prodigy was pretty strong. So if we're considering that a series finale, then I would put that up near the top. Yeah, there you go. Something like that. I'm probably leaving one out, but that's the best you're going to get. That's the best you're going to get. All Good Things is easily the best, and either Turnabout Intruder or These Are the Voyages are the worst, depending on what you consider a series finale. The Brain. Who is Star Trek's greatest sidekick? Now, this is an interesting question because it really depends on how you interpret sidekick. Is Spock a sidekick? Between Data and Geordi, is one of them the sidekick? What about Weyoun? Is Weyoun a sidekick? I mean, he's not a heroic sidekick, but he is kind of he's a sidekick to Dukat for a while. And then, of course, he's a sidekick, in his heart all along, he's a sidekick to the changelings, to the founders, and to the female changeling specifically. Is Garak a sidekick to Bashir? Garak's kind of a sidekick to Bashir in Our Man Bashir, the holodeck episode. So he might be one to nominate for the list. I mean, I don't know. Harry Kim is Tom Paris's sidekick in Captain Proton. I might go with that because Harry plays in the Captain Proton episode. Harry plays the character in the Captain Proton program that is explicitly the sidekick. Like, there's no gray area there. He is absolutely the classic stereotypical sidekick character. So I'll go with Harry. I'll say Harry Kim is Star Trek's greatest sidekick. Luxinda, putting aside copyright infringement and or trademark issues for a moment, what would be your absolute favorite thing, graphic, saying, photo, screen grab, anything visual to have on a t-shirt? Trademark issues. Oh boy. Listen, I have a couple of homemade t-shirts. That, I mean, obviously I've made them or sneakily had them made just for myself. Like, I would never try to sell them if it was in violation of someone else's copyright or trademark. But I have allowed myself what I consider the minor sort of breach of making something for myself. And what's one that I don't have that would be my favorite thing to have on a t-shirt? God, I don't know. Maybe it would be something really like nerdy and kind of nerdy, but also kind of like insufferably avant-garde at the same time. So like, if anybody saw me wearing the shirt, if they recognized what it was, they would just kind of roll their eyes and go, God, what a douchebag. Maybe like a panel from the Batman black and white comic Perpetual Mourning. I'd pick out like my favorite individual panel from Perpetual Mourning and I'd put it on a t-shirt. Because God, I love that comic. I haven't done a Best Batman Ever about it yet, but that's coming at some point. That's coming because I think Perpetual Mourning is maybe my favorite Batman story ever. Yeah. So maybe I would have to go back and read it again and find like my favorite panel of it and put that on a t-shirt. Amelia Cunningham, I want to thank you again for all the joy you brought my dad and I during his life. Do you think Khan could have been redeemed or reformed if he were to be reawoken under different circumstances, like by a different crew in a later era? So it was Captain Kirk's fault, is what you're saying. It was Captain Kirk's fault. I know you're not I don't think you're meaning to imply that. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, like, the you have to understand the way I approach it. I mean, it's a story, so my thought is, well, I guess if that's the story somebody wanted to tell, then sure, Khan could be redeemed, because he's a fictional character. If Khan were a real person, I don't think he could ever be redeemed because he's done too many bad things. That's like, so maybe you could reform Hitler? No, no, he's past the moral event horizon. He's done. He's done. And I think you could say the same thing of Khan based on the things that he is strongly implied to have done. I mean, Spock at one point says, well, his totalitarian rule was better than some of the other dictators at the time because, he wasn't as oppressive as they were. There weren't like public executions or anything, any like excessive displays of brutality, but it sounds like he was still pretty brutal. And from what we see of his personality in Space Seed and Star Trek 2, I mean, yeah, I don't know if he were a real person, I don't think he could ever be redeemed. But as a fictional character where anything is possible, if you tell the story well enough, sure. They kind of tried to do that and then wind it back at the last minute in the Khan audio series, and I will just say I don't think that worked at all. So that attempt I didn't buy, but could somebody else try it? And could it make it work? Yeah, because it's fiction. Sure, maybe. But I love the I think accidental implication that it was Captain Kirk's fault. If he'd been revived by a different crew, maybe they could have redeemed him, but not our guy Kirk. Cindy, when you're in the mood to watch something on TV or some other viewing device, but can't figure out exactly what you're in the mood for, what's your backup film or TV episode, the never fail go-to that always hits the spot? Oh man, there are a lot of them actually. It's hard to pick just one. The Room. I've watched The Room. I don't even know how many times. That's at the top of the list. There are a few episodes of The Twilight Zone that I can just put on and instantly be at my bliss point. I mean, I love the original Twilight Zone so much, and I could watch, A Game of Pool or Nick of Time or The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street or any number of other classic Twilight Zone episodes and just be in heaven. MacGyver, there's a relatively small I mean, I love all MacGyver, but there's a small rotation of MacGyver episodes that if I just feel like sitting down and just relaxing and watching something and having a good time, one of the Murdoch episodes or one of the Jack Dalton episodes, yeah. So those are some of the ones that are always kind of mixing around. Wolfram and Hart, Steve, poli-sci question. Generally speaking, it's a bad idea for top politicians to be originally celebrities. That doesn't mean they don't exist. Gregory Peck would have been great. He spoke against the House Un-American Activities Committee in the 1950s as one example. I was thinking who would be highly qualified today and keep coming back to someone I wanted to run for U.S. Senate decades ago in South Carolina, Stephen Colbert. Do you think timing is right? If not Colbert, who else would be A-tier celeb? I think Colbert would be good. Colbert is really smart. He is a Tolkien nerd, so I might have to vote for someone else in the primary. But if he were in, assuming he ran for something I could vote for him for, if he runs for the Senate in his home state, then obviously I'm not involved in that. But if he ran for president, let's say, but no, Colbert's great. The name that jumped into my mind just now when I was trying to think of somebody was Tom Morello. I don't think Tom Morello would ever actually run, but just knowing his politics and knowing, his general sort of outlook on American society and Tom Morello. Might have to change the name of the band if he gets elected, but yeah. Farah Grimm. Howdy, Steve, from myself and my husband. Really loving the teacher principal video series. Have you considered collaborating with some of your friends slash acquaintances in the media space to have other characters played by someone who isn't you? Not that you aren't great, but you and a few other YouTubers have done voice work for each other, I think, and it would be cool to see someone like Jesse Gender pop up in one of your videos. No, I like the idea of that, but the thing about playing characters myself is that it's completely on my schedule, it's completely on my time, and I can literally write a video on Monday or Tuesday, shoot it on Saturday, and have it up by the following Monday or Wednesday. And when you involve other people, you need to give yourself and them so much more lead time so that there's no schedule pinch, so that everybody has time to do what they've been asked to do. And I just don't work that way usually. I mean, that's really the thing. Like my production schedule is I write stuff during the week and then I shoot it on Saturday. Like, and the stuff this with rare, every once in a great while, I'm able to write something ahead. And have it sort of, in the drawer ready to go at some future date. But almost all the time, my production schedule is I write during the week and then on Saturday, I shoot what I wrote that week. So working that way, it's really hard to include other people. It's not that I wouldn't like to do that at some point, but I have no plans to do that for the foreseeable future. And it's mostly a scheduling thing. And it's also, I mean, look, I have a lot of fun playing the different characters. I don't necessarily want to share that with other people. Like I have a lot of sometimes it's difficult because it's like, okay, I'm shooting. Cause again, I shoot almost everything on Saturday. So it's like, okay, I'm playing 2 characters. I got to do costume changes. I got to shoot all of this stuff first. Then I sometimes might have to change the camera angle or what, it can get complicated. And there are times when I'm doing it, when I might think to myself, Christ, why didn't you just write like a monologue that you could just do to camera and it's just you? Why do you have to put on costumes? Why does there have to be different? You're like, why'd you do this? But it's a lot of fun. But no, I mean, I would work with Jessie Gender on anything. Like, I think she's great. And there are, of course, there are other YouTubers as well that I'm friends with and that I love. And if they ever asked me for something, if I could possibly do it, I would. Maybe one of these days I'll ask them to contribute to something of mine. But again, it would have to be something that I actually, had time to do. Brian Baker, Steve, I'm older than you, so I remember a time when in the USA, people who didn't like something, a television show, a piece of music, a play, whatever, just didn't watch or listen to the art. After Reagan came into office, suddenly there were protests at The Life of Brian, The Last Temptation of Christ, heavy metal, and anything that conservatives found offensive. Remember Tipper Gore in the music labeling, or the outcry over videos on MTV. When did they forget about the offsetting? When they realized that they could use that to rally votes and donations. I think that's the beginning and the end of it. When the moral majority assholes, the ones that took over the Republican Party that got Reagan in there, when they realized that they could trigger people's outrage and translate that into fundraising and political action, they never looked back. And it has infected the Democratic Party as well, because you mentioned Tipper Gore, who was not, strictly speaking, a conservative, but got involved in the fear mongering about profanity in music and all that stuff, and was a big part of that. It kind of took over the culture. I mean, it's not that nobody gave a shit before that. Like, there have always been broadcast standards, and there have always been people with sticks up their ass about certain things being portrayed in media. I mean, Christ, I think there was not an explicit acknowledgement that women menstruate on American television until an episode of Roseanne did it in either the late 80s or the early 90s. There's an episode of Roseanne from early in the show's run, one of the early seasons, again, I can't remember exactly, late 80s, early 90s, where one of Roseanne's daughters gets her period for the first time. And it is referred to as such in the show. They don't use a euphemism. They don't kind of talk around it. They say she got her period. And it was the first time that had ever been said on American television. And there were some people who lost their fucking minds over it. There were things that you, but I mean, that's the 80s. That's kind of the era you're talking about. But even back in the 70s and the 60s, there were people. I mean, there were people who objected to, Uhura and Kirk kissing on Star Trek. There were people who objected to an episode, the episode of Gene Roddenberry's previous show to Star Trek, The Lieutenant, that guest starred Nichelle Nichols, and also had a story that centered around a black Marine and racism that he encountered. There were protests about that. Like, there have always been those people who have like protested stuff and not wanted to see certain things on TV, but it was the moral majority and the remaking of the Republican Party into an explicitly right-wing conservative Christian party that really kicked that shit into high gear. And I think it's all because of they realize if you piss people off enough and you get people scared enough of what they're doing to our culture or whatever, that they will give you money and they will vote for you. And that's what happened, I think. Agent Meister, who every day gets another year older. Peldor Joy, Steve, have you ever had the perfect day? If so, would you mind telling us what it entailed? Were you lucky enough to realize that it was the perfect day at the time, or was it not until later? I wrote this while on vacation in Egypt, having just seen the pyramids and the Sphinx. My God, what a sight, and such a privilege to be able to see it. Not a perfect day for me by any stretch, but close enough. Until next time, adieu. I've probably never had a perfect day. I often look back with a lot of fondness on, I think it was my last day of high school. At least my last day of class in high school, because we hadn't had our graduation ceremony yet, but it was like the last day of class in high school. And I went home after class and I laid down and I just slept for the rest of the day. It was like I was sleeping off my education. It was like I'd been going to school every day for the last, 13 years, counting kindergarten, and it was over. I was done, and I just fucking sacked out, and it was glorious. And I was not then and never have been a nap taker. Like, I don't take naps. I don't want to. I don't feel like I need to. I just don't take naps during the day. I rarely ever have. And frankly, I kind of look down on people who do. I'm sorry, Dana, but I do. I feel like I'm superior to people who need to take a nap. I'm just better. I'm stronger. I'm more vigorous. I'm just better. But seriously, but no, I went home that day after school and I took a nap. And it's like I was sleeping off high school, and it was wonderful. And I have looked back on it with fond remembrance many times since then. So you have the pyramids and the Sphinx. I think that's better than just taking a nap, but that's what I got. Steph the Star Surfer 65, with Broborgs soon to assimilate Trek world, how much do you fear we are in for an era of erasure for all those who don't look like Iowa frat boys or refuse to be relegated to 35th fiddle for the entirety of whatever project they create? I mean, I'm not worried about it at the moment. I think Starfleet Academy has been reassuring in that sense. It is definitely a show that embraces that the diversity of Star Trek that has always been a crucial part of it, and has not shied away from it at all, and has carried on the proud and wonderful tradition that Star Trek Discovery started, and that some folks were a little worried about, because Strange New Worlds kind of moved away from this a little. Whether or not that was intentional is a different thing, but with queer representation, there's not a huge amount of like obvious, visible, overt queer representation in Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but there was in Discovery, and there has been in Starfleet Academy as well as gender diversity and racial diversity, and all of the other sort of representations of representation that we would want to see in a show as historically progressive as Star Trek and inclusive as Star Trek. So right now I'm not worried. If there is a new Star Trek show that comes down the pike in a few years and it's, the all white cis hetero male version of Star Trek, then we might have something to worry about. But right now, I think we're okay on that front. Could that change? Yes. But I'm not waking up in a cold sweat over it. I'm just enjoying the currently mostly very, very good Star Trek show that we have right now, which is Starfleet Academy. Bill, speaking of Star Trek, what does it take to be a Star Trek fan in 2026? A need for heroes, a quest for logic, required medical help, engineering, communications. What gives us the right to hope? Wow. What gives us the right to hope? It's not just a right, it's an obligation. Why should we whatever we give up by not having hope, why should we give that to the enemy? Why should we give that to the fascists? Why should we give that to the totalitarians? Why should we give that to the bigots? Why should we just roll over and let them have it? Fuck them. Whether it's about Star Trek or whether it's about anything in the real world, I'm going to continue to have hope. I'm going to continue to live as though there is a future to live for and do what I can here in the present to make that future happen and make that future better. And if it turns out that I'm wasting my time, well, then at least I wasted my time trying to deny something to those fascist pigs who are trying to take it away from everybody and ruin it for everybody. Fuck them. So that's what you need. That's what gives us the right to hope. Because it's one of the things we can do. And look at the Trumps and the Stephen Millers and the Republicans and the Nazis and all the totalitarians and fascists and ICE agents and all the other agents of persecution and exploitation and dehumanization that are assaulting us and assaulting our society and assaulting our traditions and assaulting our institutions and assaulting our freedoms and our dignity. We can look at those people and give them the finger and say, you're not going to take this from us. Or if you do take it, you're not going to have it without a fight, and you're not going to crush our spirit, and you're not going to steal our hope. And you're not going to convince us that there is no future worth fighting for. Because I think the reason they want to do that is so that we'll stop fighting. Because they know that's the only way they can win. If they can convince enough of us to stop fighting. Well, they have not convinced me. And I don't know what that has to do with being a Star Trek fan, but that last question of yours, what gives us the right to hope, kind of set me on a path there just now. So that's what I think. That's what gives us the right to hope. That's what gives us the right to hope. As to what does it take to be a Star Trek fan, nothing. You watch the show and you either like it or you don't. There's nothing special about it. I mean, I love Star Trek. I love Star Trek. And yes, there are things that are special about it. There are things about it that I cherish, but it's a TV show. You either like it or you don't. You don't have to, you don't have to like access some special thing to be a Star Trek fan. It's not like a club that you have to qualify for. If you watch a Star Trek show and you like it and you want to watch more of it, you're a Star Trek fan. Congratulations. David Colby got so sick of having to switch to his non-pen name Patreon that he signed up twice. You know what bugs me about Star Trek? The writers don't seem to understand that, like, words mean things. A Klingon saying it's a good day to die, that's not just some cute cultural Klingon thing. That's an aristocratically indoctrinated warrior caste death cult quasi-fascist thing to say. It'd be like if a German crew member was like, today we shall defend the Herrenvolk before going into battle. It's not an okay thing to say. Fucking knock it the fuck off, Worf, you alt-right wacko. I think David is overthinking it a little. I think Klingon saying it is a good day to die is fine because it is a ludicrously over the top hardcore thing to say. And that's how I like my Klingons, to be just ludicrously over the top hardcore extra drama queens. You know? So yes, of course they're always, whenever they're encountering even a relatively minor challenge, of course they're going, today is a good day to die. You know, it's like, relax, dude. We're just waiting at a red light. It's going to change here soon. We'll be fine. You know, so that's how I look at it. Now, I do think if you took your viewpoint of it and regarded it as an indoctrinated warrior caste death cult quasi-fascist thing to say, and you had like another character in a Star Trek show say that to a Klingon character or kind of put that on a Klingon character, I think you could maybe get something out of that for sure. It reminds me a little bit of some of the things that Ezri Dax says to Worf in season 7 of Deep Space Nine, when there's a point where she basically calls him out on his Klingon bullshit and points out that, you know, like the Klingon concept of honor is really inconsistent and self-serving, you know, like it reminds me a little bit of that. So I think you could use the, you know, saying it's a good day to die as like a fascist slogan that has been imposed on people. I think you could use it in that way, like in an actual Star Trek show, and maybe get something out of it. But for me personally, like as a viewer of the show, I just view it as, you know, as as um as Jules says about you know, when he says um oh, what the Ezekiel 25:17 in in Pulp Fiction. You know, I just thought it was some cold-blooded shit to say to a motherfucker before I popped a cap in his ass. Like that's kind of that's how I look at it. You know, I don't really overthink it. Um but and also I think it's really funny to refer to Worf as as an alt-right fuck. Worf, you alt-right fuck. Anyway, let's see. Next question. Endarth, in case you're struggling with the pronunciation, Endarth. Thank you very much. Hey, Captain. Originally, I wanted to complain about someone who proudly said that they didn't vote, but then I heard that Trump pooped his pants. I know it's about as true as a couch fucking Pope killer, and to that I say, shut it. So it got me thinking, what other monikers are there? The best I got are brainworms, puppy killer, and maybe penguin tariffs. If you know who I'm referring to, then they work. If not, please help. Anyway, happy Lunar New Year, everyone. Um, yeah, who's another one? Oh man, what was it? Is it Caroline Levitt that they call bullshit Barbie? I know I've heard that. I know I've heard that because she's the press secretary. She's sort of like the mouthpiece of the administration. She's the usual bullhorn of bullshit. I think I've heard people call her bullshit Barbie. Um, yeah, that's the only one I can come up with. Um, the Neil who does uneven impersonations. I don't hate Starfleet Academy, but so much of it screams lower decks and don't take me seriously at all. I like the casting and I see potential, but its tone is inconsistent. Do you agree? Yes and no. I don't think it's fair to compare it to Lower Decks because the jokes in Starfleet Academy make me laugh. And I care about the characters. Whereas in Lower Decks, they could have all been fed into a meat grinder at any point and I wouldn't have cared. And also, I probably wouldn't have laughed, which is also an indictment of the show, I feel. I don't know if the tone is variable. I don't think I would say inconsistent, but the tone is definitely variable. And yes, there are significant stretches of the show, let's say, that are very lighthearted and very kind of wacky, and that I don't think you're meant to take super seriously. Like the prank war episode. That's a comic episode, right? That's a very lighthearted episode. I don't mind that. I think that I liked that episode. I thought it worked. Um, so, and then there are also episodes like episode 6, the one that aired this week, that have some really serious shit going on, and that aren't as, you know, comedic and lighthearted. And I think that's fine. I mean, Star Trek used to do that all the time. There are episodes of Deep Space Nine that are incredibly heavy and even incredibly emotionally wrenching. And then there are episodes of Deep Space Nine that are just as light and inconsequential and goofy as you can possibly imagine. I think it's fine for a show to have varying tones like that. which one of the things I've liked about Starfleet Academy is that it's being produced like an episodic series as opposed to a movie that they chopped up into 10 parts and stretched out over 2 months, right? So no, I see what you're saying as far as the tone, but I wouldn't say inconsistent. I think it's just been variable, and I think they've actually managed it pretty well for me. Neil, not Neil, damn it. Not Kneel, damn it. This is not a question for Steve, but a shout out to this Friday night crowd. For the long-standing diehards from the long-standing diehards to the newcomers, you're all wonderful. Sitting here listening to the Q&A heartens me every Friday night. You all deserve a round. Has to be applause because I can't get you any drinks. Steve, bless what you brought to us, a warm campfire for gathering around. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you saying that, Neil. And I love the crowd who gathers around these live streams and my channel in general as well. I think I've been really lucky to attract a mostly really awesome audience, and especially a really awesome core of supporters who are patrons and channel members. But even beyond that, just the general, the regular audience for my stuff, I agree. They're a great bunch. And if you're watching this, I appreciate you too. I'm going to piggyback on what Neil said. Some random geek with a story to tell. In my latest YouTube video, I talked about how 2 trans streamers were falsely banned from Twitch. Lily Garden was banned for serious threats of violence because he retold a joke from a skit. His partner, Kazvd, was banned for hacking. She was playing Fallout New Vegas with a hacking minigame. Both were victims of a bigot using dummy and bot accounts to falsely mass report both of them. Lily had his appeal denied because he was asking for clarification. More in part 2. Some random geek with part 2 and reminder of charity links. Kaz had to spend money to have a lawyer help her write her appeal letter in such a way as to get it past the automated flagging system to get it approved. Her appeal was approved. It was still automated responses. A friend made a Twitch user voice for those with Twitch accounts to vote on, and there's the address there if anybody is interested in voting in that. Please do that. It is like a change.org petition. It's something, I'll link it in the chat. So there you go. I'll leave that on screen for a little bit if anybody wants to copy that, or Geek will also, as they say, put it in the chat. Yeah. I mean, people have run into that kind of thing on YouTube before too. I've run into it before, and not to the extent that, my channel was threatened or anything, but I've had like automatic, like things flagged automatically for copyright, let's say, that I know for a fact were fair use, and that I just let it go because I thought, well, if I appeal this and then they deny the appeal, they might give me a copyright strike. And even if I know I am absolutely in the right, it's still possible that I'll lose. And is this a video that's going to get 1 million views? And if I don't, if I'm not able to monetize it, is it going to take like a lot of money out of my pocket? Probably not. It's easier to just let it go. But when it happens, it is still incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. And an example of why, we should have we should have human beings involved in this process. Like, this should not be a completely automated system because of things like this. It's ridiculous. Fox, you've done a piece on comedy in Star Trek. How about a specific take on satire? The Ferengi are a start. That's a really good idea. That's a really good idea. I'd have to think of some more examples besides the Ferengi, but yeah, the Ferengi are a really good starting point and are probably the most obvious example. Because Star Trek does a lot of like allegory, a lot of use of metaphor for social commentary and political commentary, but outright satire is much harder to find, but it definitely is there. There are definitely episodes and themes and sort of recurring stories or recurring characters in Star Trek that are satirical, and that might be worth looking into. That's a really good idea. Thank you for that. The Grumpy Monkey, how now, Steve? Are there any words or phrases that you grew up with that are unique to Hagerstown? I live in Cork, Ireland's second city, and here we tend to pepper our sentences with the word like. I mean, like, we kind of use the word when it's not needed, like, when there's no actual use for it, like? So, are there any, like, linguistic anomalies, phrases, or sayings in the Hagerstown, Maryland patois that you could share with us, like? Also, your channel is something I really like. Well, thank you, like. I really appreciate that, like. What are some Hagerstownisms? I mean, it's not just Hagerstown, it's this entire region, but like the markers for the accent are the words tires and water, because a real hardcore Hagerstonian will say tars and water. Don't get water on those tars. That's like, and there's other, I mean, obviously, like I said, it's a regional thing. There's lots of, I think there's a little bit of that in like the Pittsburgh accent and the Baltimore accent as well. But yeah, that's something that I always think of. Tars, water. The intrusive R, Washington. I live in Washington County, but as some people say around here, Washington County. On instead of on, like turn the light on, turn the light on. There's a little bit of that around here. But what are like some things that we say? I can't really think of anything. I mean, there are things that my dad says that I don't hear other people say. Like, I think it's just like sayings he picked up that are sayings in our family. Like, and I've heard other people say this, but very rarely. But it was my dad who taught me the phrase that I still use occasionally myself, and that I absolutely adore when somebody is a little too big for their britches, when somebody is a little too egotistical, or they think that they're really great and actually maybe they're not. You would say, well, they think they're king shit a fuck mountain. Or when you're feeling really good about yourself, you might say, I felt like king shit a fuck mountain. And I don't hear, that's not like a common phrase. I don't hear people say that a lot. I mostly hear my dad say it, or I say it because I heard him say it. But that's the one that comes to mind. I don't know if that quite counts as a Hagerstown phrase, but that's what I came up with. Danny K. Hey, Steve, how adventurous of an eater would you say you are? Do you like to seek out and try new things, or do you know what you like and pretty much just stick to it? Thanks. Hope all is well. Kind of in the middle. I do have certain things at certain places that I like and that I do tend to order more often, but I also like to try new things now and then. So I wouldn't say I'm super adventurous, but I am the kind of person, like, if I'm ordering from, like, there's a Thai restaurant around here that I like to order from every once in a while. And there are one or two things that I usually get. But every once in a while, I might be looking at the menu or scrolling through the restaurant on Grubhub or DoorDash or whatever, and I'll think, oh, you know what? I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try something I haven't tried before. So I'm like that kind of adventurous eater. Not all the time, but every once in a while, I will stretch myself a little bit within boundaries and be like, yeah, I've never had that. I'm going to give that a shot. See what that's like. So yeah, not super adventurous, but a little bit, enough to kind of keep from getting completely stagnant. MW Ridger is not saying every failed creative does this. It just happens weirdly often. Your video on Dean Cain got me thinking. So many actors, musicians, etc. have turned to fascism after washing up. Also, Ben Shapiro had a failed attempt at a writing career. Candace Owens is a failed actress. Young Trump apparently tried to buy a career on Broadway. Hitler was famously a failed painter, etc. So many fail, wash up from their art, and go, well, I guess it's time to advocate for ethnic cleansing and sell shitty razors, pills, steaks, coins, etc. What's up with that? Well, I mean, I think it's like you said, it's not, I don't think it happens all that often when you look at the number of people who aspire to be artists and then can't make it for whatever reason. most of them don't become Nazis. So I think we notice the ones that do because they're conspicuous, you know, and there are enough of them to make it look like a trend because there are just a lot of people that try and fail for a wide variety of reasons. And, you know, some of them go the Trump route or the Ben Shapiro route and, you know, become fascists or apologists for fascists or, you know, whatever. So I don't think it's, I think it's more, it's we're seeing the noticeable cases. I don't think it necessarily means that like I don't think it happens a lot in context of the number of people that like fail at art. I think it looks like it happens a lot because there are that many prominent examples of it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like that. None ya business. Well, the government grinds slowly, but it does grind along. I was interested in the Pam Bondi Kash Patel. What? Was certainly interesting to watch from a spectator's viewpoint. I'm sure there's Canadians on the Epstein list, but as a guy who worked a lot of minimum wage adjacent jobs, I doubt old Jeffrey Boy cared about if I wanted to go to his island, purchased as a part of the Virgin Islands from Denmark way back in 1917 by the good old US of A. He wanted rich, powerful dudes, right? Right. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. Having watched episode 5 of Starfleet Academy about Sisko, spoilers, Jesus. Would like your opinion. Two camps about Sisko's fate. One, he enters the wormhole to be reunited with the prophets, or two, he does return, because Avery Brooks himself said he did not want to be portrayed as a disappeared dad, particularly as it being a black stereotype / archetype, but lived the remainder of his life living incognito on Bajor. Any thoughts, Kara? Well, I mean, I feel like in terms of episode 5 of Starfleet Academy, that was answered definitively. He never came back. Like there's no, according to the version of it portrayed in the show, that the answer to the question is unambiguously number one. He enters the wormhole to be reunited with the prophets, and he never comes back. That's what happened. I'm fine with that. I mean, I would rather not have an episode of a completely different show talk about it. That's the thing I really didn't like about this episode. Like, let's wrap up there were some threads dangling at the end of Deep Space Nine. Let's address those. What? No, you don't. This is not that show. You're making this show. This is not that show. Stop following up on plots from other shows, especially ones that have been over for 30 years. Fucking stop it. But I mean, I get why Avery Brooks had his concerns because he was quite right. He did not want Sisko to be perceived even vaguely or metaphorically as like an absentee father. And I respect that. And he was right to have that concern. But at the end of the day, he wasn't the writer of the show. You know, that wasn't his decision to make. And they clearly, I mean, the writers of Deep Space Nine left it ambiguous. And then the creators of this Starfleet Academy episode that decided to pick up on it 3 decades later in a completely different show, decided to deal with it the way it's dealt with in the episode. So it is what it is. I mean, I always say my personal way to deal with it, actually, the best way to deal with it would be to just not deal with it because that show is over. But if the franchise or someone in the franchise wanted to address it, I always thought the best way to address it would be to say that Sisko returned from the wormhole a few years later and retired to Bajor, and that was that. And it was no big deal. And now nobody even remembers it because it wasn't that big of a fucking deal. Because the events of Star Trek shows are perceived differently by the people living in that universe than they are by us watching the TV show. Because when we watch the TV show, what happens on the show is the most important thing ever. But if you imagine yourself as an individual living in that universe, it's probably not the most important thing to you. It's probably not on the list of top 1,000 important things to you. So that's how I would have done it. But the best way to do it would be just to not do it at all, just to let Deep Space Nine be Deep Space Nine and be done, and to make new Star Trek shows about new stuff, which is mostly what Starfleet Academy is doing, which I really, really enjoy. So there's just this one glaring exception to that, which I really, really didn't like. But everything else, they've been doing great. JDC, hey Steve, hope you're doing well. Fun cancer update. Oh, I love those. Surgery is scheduled, and the doctors are hopeful they can get it all. Who needs those pesky internal organs anyway? If anybody's curious, I'm headed to an appointment to get cleared for surgery so they can remove the cancer. Will not get you out of a speeding ticket. Lifetime first. I feel like Tom Paris in the traffic school episode, except in a society with money. Well, let me just say, good luck. I'm glad that the doctors seem that optimistic. I hope that that is what happens. I hope that prediction or that optimism is borne out. And yeah, all I can say is best of luck to you, my friend, and keep us updated. And drive the speed limit. Because I'm sure you'll have enough bills to pay without piling speeding tickets on top of everything else. Simon Moody. I finished watching Westworld a few days ago. I think it's a series I admire more than I actually like. If you've watched it, Steve, any thoughts? If not, take a free pop at Janeway. As you just started a Voyager batch, I'm sure she will forgive you, maybe. But also, if you haven't, have you considered doing a poll on watching a series you haven't that might spawn some conversation? My 2 cents would be SG-1 and Space Above and Beyond. No, I'm not going to take a poll for people to decide what shows I watch. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to watch whatever shows I want to watch. But I mean, I will probably get around to SG-1 at some point, just because I did technically start it like years ago. I did watch the first episode and thought, oh, this is pretty good. I could probably get into this. And then I just never got back to it. I just never got back around to it. So I'm probably going to get into SG-1 at some point. And I do remember Space Above and Beyond from when it was on. I didn't watch it all that much, but I remember it, when it was on. So I mean, I might pick that up at some point as well. But no, I appreciate the thought. I appreciate the suggestion, but no, I'm not going to allow viewers to vote on what shows I watch. That's never, ever, ever going to happen. And no, I've never seen Westworld. And actually, I mean, an example of, if you want an example, you didn't really ask this, but I've never seen Westworld, but an example of a series that I admire more than I actually like would be Andor. That's probably the biggest example I can think of for the past several years. I admire Andor immensely for its message and for what it is about and for what it says and for how uncomfortably and painfully pertinent it is to our present moment in history. Like, I admire all of that tremendously, and I admire a lot of the performances in it. But Jesus Christ, is that a hard show to sit through? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, is that a boring ass show for about 75% of the episodes. When shit actually starts to happen, it gets really exciting and really good for about an hour, if you're lucky, and then it goes right back to being the most boring shit I've ever seen. But I greatly admire it for all the reasons that I just said. So that would be my version of Westworld. Cast Iron Chaos, what do you think it would be like to be a conspiracy theorist in the bottle city of Kandor? When I was young and naive, I wondered how the population of an entire planet could deny reality to delude themselves into thinking the planet wasn't going to explode. Now I can understand why. Maybe some red hat Kandorians think Superman actually took the city from Kandor and is keeping them prisoner in order to prevent them from learning the truth about Jor-El and the Science Council. Yeah, probably. I'm sure there are Kandorians who have the most batshit nuts conspiracy theories you could imagine. And I'm sure it's a lot like living in the United States right now. Those would be my two observations on that idea. Glenn H., who just realized there's even a length limit to the name field. That's right. Because give you guys an inch and you'll take a yard. You know what I'm saying? That's just, I'm sorry, that's how it's got to be. Hey, Steve, I know that Star Trek Academy has been somewhat divisive, with some fans loving it and some disliking it, not including the trolls who just hate to hate. I myself have been hot and cold from episode to episode, but can we all agree that Paul Giamatti is too good for this show? He has eaten every scene he is in and Holly Hunter's lunch. Without spoiling, they are setting him up as a great baddie for this season. Just thought I'd put in my 2 cents. Have a great show. I agree with you, except I don't think he's too good for the show, because I think the show in general, again, with the exceptions I've already talked about, has been excellent. And I actually think Holly Hunter holds her own. There's a scene that I think is this, if there is a specific scene you're thinking of, there's a scene in the most recent episode where it's just Paul Giamatti and Holly Hunter. And Paul Giamatti is literally doing all the talking, and Holly Hunter is just sitting there in a chair, just kind of listening to him while he is just giving a master class on hammy Star Trek acting, right? I mean, he is just going for it and chewing all the scenery there is to be chewed. And it is wonderful to watch. He is so great. But I think she holds her own. She doesn't have any lines in the scene, or she has very few lines in the scene, and she's just sort of reacting to what he's saying. But she is holding her space in the scene. She is not allowing herself to be blown off the screen. Like, she is there. And her character is there. And the direction and the editing, remember that, like, they remember to keep her present in the scene, and her performance, although it's silent and although it's, you know, not very super demonstrative, she's just sitting there listening to him. She's holding up her end as an actor in that scene. So I can't agree with you that he's eating her lunch. But yes, he is so good. He is as good as I was hoping he would be when I heard that he was going to be in the show. He is everything I would have wanted from Paul Giamatti in a Star Trek show. He has been fantastic, fantastic. And they haven't overused him. That's the other thing I really like. They have used him sparingly. And yet, and every time we see him, there's a little more character development, and there's a little, his character comes a little bit more into focus and becomes more interesting and more intriguing, and we want to find out more about him. Yeah. And he's easily the best villain that this current era of Star Trek has produced. He's better than any of the villains in Discovery, better than any of the villains in Strange New World so far, better than the villains in Prodigy, or God, way better than the villains, if you want to call them that, from Lower Decks. He's a fantastic villain. And I've loved him every moment he's been on screen so far. So yes, I absolutely agree. He's been fantastic. Christian Daljo. Hey, Steve, good videos, hugs. My question is, because you give the most straight up answer to everyone here, what do you think will happen now about Trump in the Epstein connection? All the best to you and everyone. I really don't think anything's going to happen to him. I mean, I think maybe if the Democrats take back the House in the midterms this year, I think they might impeach him again. But I don't think unless they pull off some kind of a fucking miracle in the Senate, which I don't think is even mathematically possible. But, you know, even if they do impeach him again and it goes to a Senate trial, he's not going to get convicted because there's too many Republicans in the Senate. Even if the Republicans lose their majority in the Senate, which is a big maybe, I think it's much more likely that we take back the House than we take back the House and the Senate. But even if we take back the Senate, like I said, it's not going to be a large enough majority that the Democrats could easily convict Trump on impeachment charges and have him removed from office without having Republicans vote for them. And I just don't think that's going to happen. So as a practical matter, I don't think anything is going to happen to Trump as a result of the Epstein files. And I take no pleasure in saying that. I wish that was not the case, but I think that's the most likely outcome. I think it'll cost the Republicans in elections, or at least it will help. There's a lot of things that I hope will cost the Republicans in elections. I think the Epstein files is one of those things, but I don't think Trump's going to be removed from office for it. I don't think Trump's going to go to prison for anything. That sucks, but I think that's the most likely outcome. So, Donkey Hody. I know you paraphrase MST3K by saying just relax and enjoy, it's just a show, but how do they explain away the time dilation theory concerning FTL travel? Maybe I missed it, but I don't recall them addressing it on any Star Trek show or any other shows that use it as a plot device. No, they don't, and there's a very good reason for that, because it would fuck everything up. If they portrayed space travel like it would actually be, you could not do a show that was basically a Western in space or an action adventure series in space, right? You couldn't have real-time communication between ships and planets or other planets. You couldn't have everybody existing in the same relative time frame, right? Because of what faster than light travel does to the experience of time. It wouldn't work. You couldn't do it. So they, I think very smartly, because they're making a drama, not a science documentary, they just ignore it. They pretend that it doesn't exist. And the faster than light travel, or even the near faster than light travel that the ships do in Star Trek when they're traveling at impulse speeds, where they're supposed to be traveling at less than the speed of light, but I think they've said that full impulse is like just a hair under the speed of light. So that's, even full impulse speed is fast enough that you would be getting, if you traveled at full impulse for a significant amount of time, you'd be getting time dilation effects in real life. They just ignore it because it's just way easier that way. And I think that's what they should continue to do. And here's another one from Don Quixote, because as a patron and a member, if you want, you can submit 2 questions. Short question, Steve. Svenghoolie, fan or not? I watch almost every Saturday. I don't watch, not because I have nothing against Svenghoolie. Lots of people I know have watched him for years and think he's great. And, I love horror host. I'm sure if I watched, I would enjoy it. I like old horror movies, and I like the horror host thing. When you mentioned MST3K in your last question, I mean, MST3K it comes from that tradition of horror hosts, of, having characters sort of host the wraparounds when TV stations would put on an old movie. And that's Svenghoolie. I've just never watched it. It's just never been a habit of mine. I've never gotten into it. So no, not a fan, but not because I bear him any ill will at all. John Burns, next month are the final play-in games for the World Cup, and they're hosted in Mexico, which is interesting because Ticketmaster rules both Canada and the US, which is one of the easier ways that FIFA can get more money for their tickets. I have heard that the tickets for the matches in Mexico are $200, which might still be high for some, depending on where they are from. In one match, Jamaica plays New Caledonia, while Suriname plays Bolivia. Add in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Iraq. Good, eh? Yeah, I guess. Like, I'm sorry, have we just met? Like, what did I somehow give you the impression I give a shit about soccer or the World Cup? I hope you enjoy. I hope you watch it, and I hope you enjoy it. It sounds like you're into it. Good for you. I'm not going to watch any of it. I don't give a fuck. Sure, yeah, New Caledonia, Suriname, Bolivia, the DRC, Iraq. Great. Great. I hope. Yeah, great. I hope they all have fun. Great. I know it's like the biggest sporting event in the world. I'm not trying to but it's just not my deal. I don't care. If you watch it, have a good time. I hope you enjoy it. Stephen G. Clenard. Hey, Steve, I was hoping you could help me on my hot take on the 5th episode of Academy. Here's what I've got so far. I didn't hate it, but I hate that they made it. That's pretty close to what I say. I mean, because like I said earlier, I mean, there are parts of the episode that I like. They're just not the parts most of the people who have liked it have talked about. They're the parts that have dealt with, the actual characters in the show. The people that the show is actually supposed to be about. Not the characters from a completely different show that's been over for 30 years. So I didn't hate those parts of it. I thought some of those parts were actually kind of interesting and kind of good. But I don't think that's why they made that episode, which is a shame. And this is why they shouldn't have made it. So yes, I agree with you. I didn't hate it, but I hate they made it. So my help on your hot take is good job. Good job. That's my note. Hi, Steve, and best wishes. Couldn't fit that in with the 500 characters. Alas, tradition, arrow on fire. You once said that the movie is the movie and the books are the books. I was arguing about whether a character in a game is evil. They said he is because the lore books say his species is just universally evil. I say that's irrelevant because the game often ignores the lore and fills in whatever it wants. It makes that species more complex, suggesting nurture over nature. They said basically that the game is wrong. I said the lore is irrelevant. Can you explicate your views on this in general? You are correct. And the person who said that the game is wrong is wrong. And I mean, obviously, just my opinion, it's all subjective, but this is what I think. I personally have no interest whatsoever in lore of anything or any kind as anything other than the accumulation of things that happened in previous stories set in this setting. That is all lore is to me. It's an accumulation of stuff that happened in previous stories. I do not think that present day storytellers should be at all bound by it. I do not think that a newer story that contradicts something in the lore should automatically be labeled as wrong. I think calling a story, whether it's a book or a movie or a video game or whatever, calling it wrong because it doesn't match with some other thing, with the lore, with a book or whatever, that to me implies such a flat, thoughtless, uncreative, boring view of art and what art is. I do not want to be told by anyone else what the thing I am watching or reading or playing in the case of a game or whatever, what it is about. You as a third party or some other work, some other book, some other whatever, some other source, you don't tell me what it's about. The thing itself tells me what it's about. The thing itself and my interpretation of it. That's what decides what it's about. So if you're playing a game and a species in a game seems complex and multifaceted and something other than universally evil, then in that game, in that work, whatever it is, then that is what it is. And it doesn't matter what the lore says. So yes, you are absolutely correct. The lore is irrelevant. The lore is always irrelevant. The lore is only as relevant as the storyteller chooses to make it. If the storyteller chooses to bring in some of the lore, to reference it, to make connections to it, to tie their story to it in some way, that's their choice. And they have every right to do it. And they can do that and it can work. But they don't have to do that. And if their story contradicts something that someone else said in their story, even if it's the same characters, even if it takes place within the same world, even if it's supposed to be the same thing, it's fiction. And if this story tells the story one way and this story tells the story the other way, neither one of them is wrong. They're different stories. It's pliable. It's flexible. It's fiction. It's not reality. It's not history. It's not, the rules of logic where, A cannot be not A. A is A and B is B, and that's just the way it is, right? That's not how fiction works. And I really wish that more people would realize that and be a little more open-minded and not to say that you have to like everything. Be critical, but be critical based on the thing that you're reading or watching or playing right now. Not because you're comparing, not because you think you have an answer key. Stories don't have answer keys. Stories aren't riddles. Stories aren't puzzles. Stories aren't things to be, even games. Yes, you might be playing a game and there might be a puzzle. There might be something you need to accomplish, but the story in a game is just like the story in anything else. It's not there to be solved and it's not there to be outsmarted. It's there to be experienced. And then you decide whether it works for you or not based on your reaction to that experience, based on how it makes you feel, based on what it makes you think. Not because you checked off all the items on the list and, well, it got that right, it got that right, it got that right. How fucking boring. That's what I think. Short version, you're right. Jim P. Hi, Steve. We're really enjoying Starfleet Academy. Think they're doing a nice job balancing everything and making it realistic for a teenage drama. The War College is an interesting addition to Star Trek. Any thoughts on its place in the series and how it impacts the new Academy? Have a great show. I love the War College. I think the War College is a great idea. What I love the most about it is, I love a couple things about it. It allows the show to draw attention to the dual nature of Starfleet, to acknowledge that there has always been in every iteration of Star Trek, there has always been an element of Starfleet, even though they deny it, even though they insist that it's not this way, there has always been an element of Starfleet that is military in nature. Starfleet is, in part, a military organization. Even though they always say it's not, it clearly is. Starfleet fights the wars, okay? Starfleet fights the wars. So Starfleet is, in part, a military organization. And the War College kind of leans in that direction, you know? And the Academy is more like the exploration side of it. And the side of it is like, no, this is about diplomacy and science and creating a community of peaceful coexistence in the universe and all of like the optimistic stuff, right? And so you have it kind of divided in half. And there's this part and there's this part. And they butt up against each other. They have conflict. Their sparks fly between them. But we also see that they can cooperate. And that together, because both graduates of both universities go on and become Starfleet officers. If you graduate from the War College, you go to Starfleet. If you graduate from Starfleet Academy, you go to Starfleet. Like, they're feeding people into the same institution. And I think that's great. I love that. And I also love the fact within the fiction of the show that because the Academy has not existed for a long time and the War College kind of came in to fill that vacuum, now the War College is the established sort of senior institution, and the Academy, which is the one that we as Star Trek fans are familiar with because they just invented the War College for this show. So we automatically kind of think, well, the Starfleet Academy, the legendary institution where all of our favorite characters went and, blah, blah, blah. Within this show, the Academy is the upstart, because this is the first class they've done in like 100 years. So the Academy is this new untested thing. And I think that's just a really, really interesting dynamic for the show to have, and one that I didn't expect when I heard that they were doing a Starfleet Academy show. I just did not expect this to be a part of it. And it shows that they were creative and they thought some things out and went in some unanticipated directions when they were crafting the premise of the show, which I love and I really, really appreciate. So I think the War College is great. Russell. Hey, Steve, I know the hot topic right now is ICE and border control, and I never liked Trump, but you know what they say about every word before but, don't you, Russell? But I do like to be consistent in my arguments. So why is it under the Biden administration there was 26 deaths by ICE enforcing border control and 56 deaths under Obama? No one cared. No one protested. Moreover, why is it okay for most countries to have border control and not the U.S.? I just don't think this is going to help liberals retake the office in 3 years. There is my fear, if you want the truth. And I'll just go ahead and read the second half of it because Russell submitted it in two halves because Russell is also a patron and a member. Real quick, let's attack Trump on his narcissistic, egotistic, and yes, racist ideology and his plans for, say, Greenland, etc. Anyways, second question. I am preparing myself to watch Starfleet Academy by watching some of the best, in my opinion, of Voyager's The Doctor episodes. What are some of your favorite Dr. Voyager episodes and moments? I like the one where he daydreams. I like both his returns to the Alpha Quadrant episodes. I even like the second season. I think his program starts to degrade. I like Life Signs, where he falls in love with the woman who has the phage. I like Author. I don't think it compares super well to Measure of a Man, which is its antecedent in TNG, but I still think Author is a good episode and finds a different angle from which to approach that story. And I can't remember Latent Image, the one where it's revealed that Janeway has like secretly reprogrammed him without his knowledge. I like that one too. As for the ICE thing here, okay. 26 deaths under Biden, 56 deaths under Obama. Unless I am mistaken, those are people who died in detention. And those are still inexcusable. But those were not cold-blooded murder in the middle of the street of unarmed civilians. It's different. There's a difference between federal agents just straight up with impunity murdering American citizens in the streets, as happened in Minneapolis, as also happened in Los Angeles before that. So there's a distinction between the circumstances that I'm not saying that the 26 deaths under Biden were okay by any means, because they weren't. Nor am I saying of the 56 deaths under Obama were okay, because they weren't. Also, you're wrong that no one protested. People protested Obama's immigration policies, and rightly so, because Obama's immigration policies, while not nearly as bad as Trump's, were also terrible. And so were Biden's. I don't think any American president has had good immigration policy for my entire lifetime. Immigration policy has been something that both parties have fucked up my entire life. And there have been protests. Now, were the protests as big as the protests have been for ICE this past year? No. But part of the reason for that is because the presence of ICE and the tactics of ICE were not nearly as visible and heavy-handed and brutal. So it's not so much that Biden and Obama were good, it's that they were not nearly as bad as this. And also, it's a fallacy to say, well, nobody protested it before, so why are they protesting it now? American police have been murdering people of color in this country for decades. It happened in the 80s, it happened in the 90s, it happened in the 60s and the 70s. It's happened for the entire history of organized policing in this country. It has always been a problem. Police have always murdered Black people and have rarely been punished for it. That has always been a problem. So why was it all of a sudden such a big deal when it happened to Trayvon Martin? Why was it all of a sudden such a big deal when it happened to Sandra Bland? Why was it all of a sudden such a big deal when it happened to Freddie Gray or Eric Garner or George Floyd or any of the, Philando Castile or any of the other Black people who were murdered by police and compelled the Black Lives Matter movement to become a major social movement and take to the streets? Sometimes it just happens that way. Sometimes the dam breaks. Sometimes a problem becomes too much for too many people to ignore, and it just happens. It doesn't mean it wasn't a problem then, and it doesn't mean the people who are protesting it now are wrong for protesting it. That's just how society and culture and history and social movements work. And as for why can other countries have border control but not the U.S., there's nobody saying that. There's literally nobody that I have heard in mainstream American politics who has said we shouldn't control our border in any way. We should just have an open border. That is a lie that has been pushed on the Democrats by the Republicans. Republicans say those Democrats, they just want open borders. There's not a single Democratic politician I have ever heard of who has said we should have a totally open border. We shouldn't have any border policy at all. We should just let people come in whenever. I have never heard a single person say that. I have certainly never heard a single person seriously suggest that or propose that as a solution to the immigration problem in this country. So that's just flat out bullshit. That's just flat out bullshit. So, well, if European countries can have border policies, why can't we? We can. Also, ICE is not the Border Patrol. The Border Patrol operates within, I think, 100 miles of the border. ICE is internal enforcement. And people have been saying, by the way, that ICE should be abolished, that we don't need ICE for virtually as long as ICE has existed. Because most immigrants, documented or undocumented in this country, are nonviolent. do not pose a threat to people, do not commit murder, do not rape, do not deal drugs, do not commit violent crimes or crimes that harm their communities. Most immigrants, documented or undocumented, who come into this country don't bother anybody, don't hurt anybody, don't get into trouble. And therefore, there is no crisis for ICE to respond to. There is no legitimate problem that demands that we have an agency of the government exclusively dedicated to finding and deporting undocumented immigrants once they're already in the country. The problem does not exist. Therefore, one might say that ICE as an agency does not need to exist, especially in light of how it has been weaponized and turned into a fucking secret police force by the Trump administration. And again, none of it's reached a boiling point under Trump, but none of it is new. People have been protesting the existence of ICE for decades. So that's what I have to say about that. And you say we should attack Trump on other things. I feel like it would be political malpractice to not at least mention the fact that President Trump has invented a non-existent crisis and used that as an excuse to send armed, masked, anonymous federal agents into American cities where they have assaulted, harassed, wrongfully arrested, abused, and in some cases, fucking murdered people. I feel like the Democrats, when they're running for election in the midterms, should at least mention that. Don't you? Last question from Dana. Hey, Steve. Happy Friday? Oof, these days. Anyway, something light. Do you have any particularly memorable assignments from back in school? Something that stands out? What was it and why? I will keep this short because I've spent a lot of time on the member questions, and this is the last one. And I do want to get to the Stuffy short and the chat. When I was in 7th grade, I wrote a Batman play, and myself and some of my classmates in my English class produced it, and I played Batman. And this was a project for a grade. So that's what I'm choosing. I benefited from the fact that my regular 7th grade English teacher, Mrs. Daniels, who's one of my favorite teachers ever, left before the year was over. She moved to another city and before the school year was out. So like for the last couple of months of 7th grade, we had a long-term substitute. And she was coming in and the school year was already well underway. And when she heard that me and some of my friends had this idea to do a Batman play as like a long-term project in English class, she said, yeah, fuck it. Do it. And and I'll grade you on it. And that'll be a big part of your grade. And it made her job a lot easier because those of us who were involved in it could work on that during class time. And that was less that she had to worry about. So yeah, the play, it was based on the Mr. Zaz issue of Nightfall, where he takes a school hostage and he's threatening them. He's going to kill him. And then Batman comes in and saves the day. Yeah. Wrote, produced, and starred in a Batman play in 7th grade for an English class project. That is my favorite assignment from school. All right. Let's see. Let's restart the web chat viewer, as is tradition on the live stream. And while I'm doing that, I can tell you that coming up in just a moment, as soon as the chat reboots, I'm going to show everybody a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. This is one that I wrote this one a little while ago, but I just shot it earlier this week. So it is literally fresh, hot off the presses. And I'm going to show it to everybody. And it will go live as its own thing, as its own standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow. But because you all are watching this live stream right now, you get to see it before anybody else. So here we go. Please do enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short. Do you guys ever flush the toilet while you're still peeing? And as the water goes down, you imagine that you're pushing it down with the force of your pee?
I pee sitting down.
Yeah, always sitting down. I am unable to use a water closet in any other position.
Listen to you sissies. I'm always standing up when I use the toilet, and I do it as God himself intended. Outdoors.
Because you're a bear?
What's that got to do with it?
So when you say use the toilet, you mean it metaphorically?
How do you read it?
Did you see what happened to the Cybertruck at that house on the corner?
No, what happened?
Somebody vandalized it. They spray painted loser on both sides.
Ha! Good.
Such things tease a wisp of a belief in karma from my mercilessly skeptical mind.
Same here. Serves that dipshit right for buying a Cybertruck.
A right piece of shit, Eddie.
Well, I don't know. He's a loser by definition. He owns a Cybertruck, but I don't know if he's a piece of shit or not.
What's the difference?
A loser elicits pity.
Right, and a piece of shit compels outright contempt. A loser is someone who isn't a bad person. They aren't worth hating. They're just kind of a zero. Like Rollo. Remember him, Stuffy? My friend Hannah's husband?
I remember him. What makes him a loser, though? He seemed like a nice guy.
You can be a nice guy and still be a loser. The world is full of pleasant losers. He's never said anything remotely interesting. He has a terrible sense of humor. He laughs at stuff that's not even remotely funny. And I don't mean like offensive stuff. I mean like witless, unfunny stuff, like TikToks of babies throwing up on people or whatever.
The hell?
I don't know. This one time he showed me this video of a baby throwing up on someone and he acted like it was the funniest thing he ever saw. Also, this one time, Hannah told me that he said to her, Steve swears a lot. What the fuck is that about? Is he a motherfucking Sunday school teacher or something? We're all adults. Who gives a shit? Plus, he's always wearing that wide-brimmed hat. Is he a cowboy? No. Is he a paleontologist? No. Wear a normal hat. Like this.
You just don't like the hat because it reminds you of Dave Filoni.
Do I need a better reason? Actually, you know what? I talked myself into it. Fuck Rollo. He isn't just a loser. He's a loser and a piece of shit.
Porque no los dos.
I didn't know you could speak Spanish.
Solo un poco.
Rollo. Somebody should kill two birds with one stone and lock him in that dipshit Cybertruck and shove them both over a cliff. I'd do it myself in a consequence-free world.
Oi, what the hell kind of a thing is that to say?
You're right. I'm sorry.
And well, you should be. You'll never accomplish anything if you let fear of the consequences stop you.
Ta-da! Okay, let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, Darth Eddie says, the Stuffy shorts have me wondering if those Sheets pizza sandwiches are the bomb that the characters say they are. They are. I love me a pizza sub from Sheets. Oh, fuck. Oh, God. So good. I might have to get one for lunch tomorrow now. It's been a while since I had one. Pepperoni pizza sub from Sheets with marinara sauce, Parmesan cheese. Oh, so good. So good. Let's see. No, geek, you can wear whatever. You have special dispensation as a friend. You can wear whatever. I would never clip your wings like that, my friend. I would never want to clip your wings like that. Let me see. Oh, Neil says, I always suspected Steve fought crime. Only on stage when I was 13. Hairwood Fire says everyone who refuses to sit down to pee is pathetic. You know, I'll go with you. If someone refuses, if someone says like they think that like as a man I can't sit down to pee, yeah, that's bullshit. But if you want to pee standing up, there's nothing wrong with that. But yeah, if you're trying to make like a statement out of it, yeah, that's kind of silly. Cast Iron Chaos says, obviously the FIFA question was because you're a wrestling fan. Wrestling and international soccer are intertwined. Are they? I mean, they both take money from the Saudis that they probably shouldn't. So maybe that is part of it. They're both willing to take millions of dollars from a brutal totalitarian monarchist regime. Oh, and Geek just shared the link for the vote link for Twitch that was mentioned in the question earlier. So there you go. Sinister Intelligence. Isaiah says tomorrow's Pale Blue Dot Day and Valentine's Day. Any plans? Yes, I'm going to shoot YouTube videos. I have no Valentine's Day plans or Pale Blue Dot Day plans. No, but I am going to. It is Saturday and it is my video production day, so that is my plan to do that. Oh, Cassio, I saw this one earlier. I'm glad you put it in again. Were you in the Navy, and is that why you punk on them so much? No, I was never in the Navy. I was never in the military in any way. But my dad was, and my grandfather was. They were both in the Navy. My dad and my pap, my dad's dad, they were both in the Navy. So that is why I have a special affection for the Navy. And that is why I will occasionally throw a little jab at the Navy, because of my dad and my pap. Oh, Geek says, what movie are you going to watch to honor Catherine O'Hara? I might watch A Mighty Wind again. Darth Eddie, I remember that. The Saturday Night Live sketches about Bill Brasky have the best urine stream joke. Brasky's urine stream is so powerful it can cut an uncooked steak in half. That is a really good line. There's a really great running gag by Stuart Lee in one of his shows as well, where he just keeps coming back to how amazed he was by the strength of the jet of his father's urine. he just doesn't let it go. He does that great Stuart Lee thing where he brings it up and then he kind of wanders off and you think that he's talking about something else, and then he comes back to it, and he does that again and again, and it's just hilarious. And the jet of his urine. Yeah, Dana, I know. I dropped the ball on the military tradition. Oh well, I guess I'll have to find a way to live with it. 255 AD, good for you. When I was about 11, we had to make puppets of British birds in woodwork. I lied about Archaeopteryx fossils being found in Britain so I could make an Archaeopteryx. Good for you. Good for you. That is true, Stephen. In the Navy, you can help your fellow man. That is true. That is absolutely true. My father used to tell me stories about how when he was in the Navy, they would help their fellow man by cutting a hole in a watermelon and then emptying an entire bottle of vodka into it, and then giving it some time to circulate, and then slicing the watermelon and serving it to their fellow sailors. So everybody could get drunk, but it would just look like they were having a nice, refreshing slice of watermelon. Isn't that nice? Isn't that like a nice way to help your fellow man? I thought it was. Trinda1701 says, what did you think of Pam Bondi's Mean Girl impression in Congress? Wild talk about arrogant. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And I wrote a skit about it. And that's one of the things that I'm shooting tomorrow. I wrote a kind of a parody of it. So I hope it turns out as good as I think it will be. Air One Fire, Steve, favorite quotes from Guardians. I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. That's got to be right up there. They're all Yondu quotes. He might have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. Yeah, but no, I'm Mary Poppins, y'all. That's gotta be my favorite. Kane20C says, may I have permission to skip the next movie for late seating? Yes, of course. I wish I could skip it because I've never seen it, and I was hoping to keep that streak going as well. For those of you who don't know, we haven't watched it yet. This is the next episode of late seating we have to do. We're not recording it this weekend. We're recording it next weekend. But The Notebook, which it's kind of my fault because I chose A, and A was The Notebook. At the end of every episode, we choose our next movie, and Jason gives me a blind choice, and I don't know which movie is which letter. So I chose A, and it turned out A was The Notebook. Neither one of us are happy about it. I was not planning on watching The Notebook ever in my life either, but now I have to for the show. So I'm not happy about that, and I am more than happy to excuse you from that responsibility. Go ahead, skip it. Don't do that to yourself. I'm assuming it's going to turn out like I expected. It's not going to be a very good movie. Maybe it'll surprise me. Maybe I'll watch it and I'll go, you know what? That was really good. I'm not waiting on that, but maybe that's what'll happen. But I don't think so. Geek. Yeah. He may be your daddy, or he may be your father, boy, but he ain't your daddy. God, what a great line. What a great movie. Blade Winters says, have you ever done a video about Trump having a nickname consultant? No, but that's kind of a funny idea. John Stewart, 1701. What advice do you have for dealing with someone that follows white supremacist, misogynist accounts online, saying they follow them to know the arguments from the other side? What advice do I have for dealing with them? Don't, if you can avoid it. Like, do you have to deal with them? I would just not deal with them. That's a dumb. Are they a cop? Are they a researcher? Like, is there some reason why they need to be familiar? Like, are they a journalist that writes about white supremacists? Are they some kind of interventionist? Are they a social worker? Like, is there some reason why they need to expose themselves to these arguments? Or are they just a normal Joe? Are they just a civilian? Like, because you don't. Because A, debating them isn't going to change a fucking thing. And B, I'll save you the time. Their arguments are all bullshit. Like, they don't have coherent, intelligent, rational arguments. It's all just racism and sexism and homophobia and transphobia and xenophobia. That's it. It's hate and ignorance. That's their argument. The more intelligent ones might be able to dress it up and make it sound kind of political or philosophical or rational, but that's just window dressing. That's rationalization, not rationality. So no, it's a waste of fucking time. That's what, if you have to deal with them, then I would say tell them it's a waste of fucking time. And that they're a dipshit if they think they're doing anything constructive for themselves or anybody else by familiarizing themselves with the arguments. Some super chats. Thank you very much, everybody, for the super chats. Actually, here's one from earlier from Kitsugi Sai from Amara. What's your reaction to the Spider-Man Noir trailer? Oh, thank you. I liked it a lot. I like my Nicolas Cage unhinged. And that's what it looks like we're going to get. Unhinged Nicolas Cage, black and white. Well, that's the version I'm going to watch, the black and white one. Spider-Man. I dug it. I'm looking forward to it. And here's one from Amos Burb. Thank you very much. Hi, Steve. Love the content. Been a boon for my writing skills. What are your thoughts on Dramatis Personae from season 1 of DS9? For me, it worked because it established how strong the characters were by putting them out of character. I love that episode. It's not just putting them out of character. It's how much fun everybody's having, especially Avery Brooks. Avery Brooks has so much fun in that episode, and he just goes for it. It's a clock. And then, when O'Brien says, sir, we should abandon the station, and he jumps up behind the desk and goes, never! It's just such a great episode. I love it so much. And then his megalomaniacal rant to Kira at the end when they confront each other in that cargo bay. And he's like, but you see, unlike you, I understand history. My name will blaze across the stars long after your petty treacheries have been forgotten. God damn it, that's great shit. I mean, it's bad, but it's bad in the best possible way. I love Dramatis Personae. And here's one from my friend Neil Klein. Thank you, Neil. Just a guess, but if you weren't a content creator, would you be a teacher? You'd be awesome at the right topic. There's not enough money in the world. No. I appreciate you saying that. And I do, in my own sort of conceited way, I do think I might be good at being a teacher. But I have known too many teachers, and I respect them and admire them because I know I could never do that job, especially not for what they're paid. There is not enough money in the world for me to not only do the job as described in the job description and actually teach the students and help them to master the material and do all the things that teachers, but also to deal with ignorant, fucking clueless parents who I would have no patience for, who I would get fired the first time one of them said, well, should they really be reading this book? I don't know, especially if it was some fucking bullshit like, well, you know, I mean, there's a lot of like gay subtext in it. It's too sexual. I don't think kids at this age group should be learning. Fuck you. Go fuck yourself. I would get fired so fast. I could never be a teacher. Ever, 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 ever. And like I said, there's not enough money in the world to even get me to try. It would never happen. I appreciate you saying that. I have nothing but admiration for teachers. Teachers are the most essential, but least respected and least appreciated and least well compensated profession in the world. Like I don't understand how the ones that do can put up with the bullshit they have to put up with from parents, from politicians, from in many cases their own fucking administrators. It's ridiculous. I don't know how they do it, but I have nothing but respect and admiration for the good ones. They are heroes. Teachers are heroes. Good teachers are heroes. And I could never, ever, ever be one. Ever. I don't have it in me. Let's see. Wolferman Hart, I saw Roman Holiday for the first time. Makes me admire Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck even more. A cute exploration of individualism and oddly romantic by having faith not everyone is self-interested. I love Roman Holiday. I love Roman Holiday so much. One of my favorite movies. 255 AD says, will you be annoyed if Academy ends with the War College being abolished? No. No, if that's the direction it goes, that's fine. I don't think that the War College, because they've established it as a thing in the early going, that it has to exist forever and ever and ever. If the way they tell the story is that eventually they kind of get reintegrated and it's just the Academy from then on, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. As an idea, I mean, it depends on how they execute it. If they tell that story and it sucks, then that's a different thing. But the general idea, I don't have a problem with that at all. No. Stephen Clinard with the super chat. The version of Steve from Stuffy and Friends would be a great teacher. For about 5 minutes before he got fired and possibly arrested. Yes. Dana says, as a teacher, I'm going to have to disagree. I'd put nurses and library workers ahead of teachers in the essential yet underpaid list. Okay. Agree to disagree. Only because I don't think, obviously I think nurses and library workers are essential and also underpaid. But I don't think they are vilified and blamed as much as teachers are. 255AD also says, does the fact that the FFRF are willing to make common cause with Muslim civil rights groups show they have better priorities than a lot of the old atheist movement? Yes. There's a short answer to that one, buddy. Yes. Air One Fire says, my favorite late seating ep was Dirty Dancing. I love when Jason goes fucking crazy. Me too. I love when Jason goes off on when he has one of his little Jason tantrums. Actually, you know what? One of my favorite things that Jason does on late seating, that he does it a lot when we're doing a movie that we don't like. And he does it a lot, and it gets me every time. It's you, and he usually does it when we're about to start the plot summary, when it's the bit where where usually he'll say, you know, all right, Steve, are you ready to travel into the world of whatever movie we're watching? But if it's a movie he really doesn't like, he'll go, no. Or he'll say, I don't want to. Or he'll, you know, something like that. Like, I don't want to do the show anymore. Like, he'll do something like that. And it gets me every time. It makes me laugh every time. Roger Ebert said Dirty Dancing was an example of the idiot plot, where this is Cast Iron Chaos, by the way, where the movie is full of problems that only happen because everyone is an idiot. I would say that's true. But, you know, like Dirty Dancing is one of those movies that I love because when I watch it, I don't take it super seriously. You know, it's in that, as many of Patrick Swayze's most memorable films are, it's in that so bad it's good category where, yeah, the characters are dumbasses, but it's entertaining, you know? 255 AD says, is there any point trying to build a third party if splitting the vote just keeps the far right in power indefinitely and a fascist regime might eventually ban opposition parties? No, there's no point at least not at the presidential level in the United States. If there's ever going to be a viable third party in the United States, it has to start from the ground up. It can't. The problem with all of the third parties or the minor parties in the United States that have gotten attention over the last 25 or 30 years is they all try to start with running somebody for president. And that's never going to happen. It needs to be built from the ground up so that there is a base of support, so that there's an institution, there's organization. There are serious candidates at multiple levels. There's strategy. There's campaign structure. It's an actual political party, you know, that has policies and ideologies that actually coherently differentiate it from the two major parties in meaningful ways. And even then, it will probably do more harm than good because, yes, it may end up splitting the vote. And if it's a more left-leaning party, then it'll fuck the Democrats. And unless there's a serious chance that third party can actually win a lot of elections, that's not what we want. Because even though the Democrats are far from ideal in many ways, they are better than the Republicans in every way. You know, so no, yeah, it's at this point and for the foreseeable future, I would say no. Supporting a third party, especially at the national level, is counterproductive. Prosthetic Head says, what would ruin Trek for you? It's really hard to think of something that would ruin it for me, because even if they made, like, let's say, you know, the David Ellison regime takes over the franchise and the next Star Trek show or the next several Star Trek shows are, you know, sort of betrayals of the values of the franchise up until now. And they're not progressive and they're not inclusive and they're not thoughtful about society and politics. You know, let's say that happens. Let's say what people are afraid of might happens. I've still got TNG. I've still got Classic Trek. I've still got Deep Space Nine. I've still got the movies. Like, just because they might start making new shows or new movies that are inconsistent with the established values, historically speaking, of the franchise, that doesn't, it might ruin those new shows for me. I might not want to watch those anymore. I might stop watching new Star Trek for a while, but I'm still going to want to watch Deep Space Nine every once in a while. I'm still going to want to watch Star Trek 2. You know what I mean? Like, it's still there. What's there is there. So I don't know if anything could ruin it for me. you know, because the parts of it that I love are already here. And if they're going to make more, yes, of course, I would like to be able to love the new stuff too. And I do love a lot of the new stuff, but if they start, you know, Naziing it up and I can't love the new stuff anymore, well, that would suck. That would be a shame. And I think that would be incredibly detrimental to the future of the franchise, because I don't think that would be super popular. And it would alienate a lot of the fan base, because the haters and the fandom menace people who piss and moan about how supposedly woke it is now, though they might be loud, but they are not the majority of the fan base. So I think it would be, commercially speaking, a big mistake. But if that happens, it happens, and it doesn't ruin Star Trek for me, because Star Trek isn't just the new stuff. Star Trek is everything. And there's a lot of stuff that already exists that I think is fucking shit. Like, there's a lot of Star Trek that I think is fucking terrible. That hasn't ruined it for me. I still like what I like, and I still like it overall. So no, it's hard to think of anything that could like ruin it for me. Member message from Brian Baker: include social workers as underpaid, paid just enough to not be eligible for the programs we apply for our clients. George Clooney for Congress. Boy, social workers, absolutely. Yes, I'm with you on that 100%. TV Fishbowl says, do you like the Majority Report with Sam Sater? I don't watch it regularly. The little bits of it I've seen here and there I've liked, but I don't watch it regularly. Cast Iron Chaos, what would ruin Star Trek? Allowing 95-year-old William Shatner to take over the franchise? Yeah, not a great idea. Isaiah, I know I mentioned your late seating fanfic to him. Yeah, I mentioned it to him once or twice. Power Ranger Donnie, I don't know. Like, I don't get that argument. I love all generations of Star Trek, but I believe it's time that the franchise be placed under the stewardship of anyone who understands it from the start. What does that mean? Because like a lot of people have said, well, you know, the problem is Alex Kurtzman doesn't understand Star Trek. What's the evidence of that? Because like there have been some really, really fucking amazing Star Trek shows produced while Alex Kurtzman has been in charge. Have I liked it all? Fuck no. But some of it has been amazing. And a lot of the bits of it that have been amazing have not only been produced under his sort of, you know, regime as the grand poobah of the franchise, as like the executive producer in charge of the whole thing, but they have had his name on it. He has written, he has directed, he has produced, like the shows themselves. So I don't really buy the argument that, well, the problem is Alex Kurtzman's ruining it. He doesn't understand Star Trek. I call bullshit on that. If you're talking about like the head of Paramount now being a right-wing asshole, like, yes, I ideally the shows and movies that I love would not be in the hands of right-wing assholes ever. But in terms of like the people who have run, I mean, there's an argument to be made that Alex Kurtzman, that his version of Star Trek, that regardless of, you know, the individual quality of the shows, which I agree has been up and down, although I might disagree with a lot of people as to where the ups are and where the downs are. But I think you could argue that just in terms of the overall spirit of the thing, that the Star Trek produced with Alex Kurtzman in charge of the franchise has been at least as consistent with the values of the franchise leading up to that, if not more so than the Rick Berman era was. And it has certainly been a lot more creatively adventurous than it was in the Rick Berman era. Deep Space Nine being the exception, because it was kind of allowed to go off in its own little corner and do its thing. I mean, I think for better and for worse, and there have been some huge creative ups and downs, but I think it's hard to argue that Star Trek Discovery was not a far more creatively adventurous series than Voyager ever was, or Enterprise ever was. You know, it didn't always work, much to my chagrin some of the times, but it fucking tried shit. And it thought outside the box, and it took big swings, sometimes too big, sometimes swings that it was not ready to take and that it shouldn't have taken, but it took them. And you can't really say that very often about Voyager or Enterprise or even TNG. And as much as I love TNG, it didn't really take a lot of big, risky, creative swings like Discovery did. And like Strange New Worlds has done to a lesser extent. Strange New Worlds has played it a lot safer. But no, so I don't get the idea of, and what does that mean? Like, they should be someone who understands it from the start. What, they should be a Star Trek nerd? I think the last person you should ever put in charge of a franchise like Star Trek is a nerd who is obsessed with that franchise. That should never, ever happen. Fans should not write the shows. Fans should not be in charge of making creative decisions on the shows. Because when you put fans in charge of the shows, you get fan fiction. Geek, do I agree to eventually abolish the Senate and the Electoral College? I'm in favor of getting rid of the Electoral College. I'm fine with the Senate. I think the Senate existing as a legislative body is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But the Electoral College, I'm all for getting rid of. But I Power Ranger Donnie, I don't know why you don't trust him. Like, what has he done to earn your mistrust? What, he's produced some bad Star Trek? So did Gene Roddenberry. So did Rick Berman. Like, I don't get why Alex Kurtzman specifically is untrustworthy or is viewed as a bad guy by fans who don't view Rick Berman or Gene Roddenberry or even Harve Bennett, who I absolutely love and admire and respect and think did, for the most part, a fantastic job. Star Trek movies. I mean, he's responsible for Star Trek V, like his track record isn't spotless either. I think it's probably, in terms of consistency, it's probably the best of any of the quote unquote showrunners of the series, but it's not spotless. I don't get the argument that somehow Alex Kurtzman is like a uniquely bad steward of the franchise. It's been inconsistent, but so has everybody else. All right, it's after 8 o'clock. So let me take a few more questions now from the chat, and then I'll do the big wrap up, and then I'll take some final questions, and then we'll end the show. Let's see. There was one here. What was prosthetic head? How is the Jem'Hadar character in Star Trek Academy not an example of lore ignorance? First of all, lore ignorance is a dumb concept. I don't care about lore, or I mean, that's a stupid nerdy thing to say. Who gives a fuck? Seriously, who gives a fuck? But if you want me to actually answer your question from an in-universe perspective, it's not an example of lore ignorance because the Star Trek Academy series is set 800 years after the last time we ever saw a Jem'Hadar character in a show. So you should just assume that some shit has changed. And that's the answer to that objection. Like, again, lore ignorance is a dumb concept. Oh, Alex Kurtzman, he doesn't know about Star Trek. I don't fucking care if he knows about Star Trek or not. I think he knows a lot more about Star Trek than people assume he does, but I don't fucking care. I would hire someone to run Star Trek who knew how to tell a fucking story. I wouldn't care if they had ever watched Star Trek before, as long as they knew how to tell a story and as long as they were the kind of person who had the same priorities that Star Trek has always has, which is they want to make a show that has something to say, that is about something, that tackles social issues, that tackles political issues, that is a show that will champion inclusion and multiculturalism and equality, that will be progressive in its attitude and its politics. If you can find me that person and they're a good writer and a good storyteller and they want the job, but they say, only one problem, I've never seen Star Trek, I don't fucking care. Because I don't care about the fucking lore. I don't care about the canon. I don't give a fuck about any of that. I care about good shows. I care about good stories. I care about characters that I can care about and follow and get interested in. And if one of them is a Jem'Hadar that is a female and apparently has like a family, has a mother and father, and that contradicts the lore about Jem'Hadar from a show that went off the air 30 years ago and within the fictional timeline is set centuries in the past, I don't fucking care. And I don't think anybody else should care either. And anybody who does care is expressing a criticism of the show that I refuse to take seriously. That is not media literacy. That is not being critical. That is not reading comprehension. That is being a pedant. That is being overly attached to shit that doesn't fucking matter. Who gives a fuck? There was a description in the most, there's an episode, I think it's next week's episode. I got a sneak peek at next week's episode. Some podcasters were kind enough to share their screeners with me. I watched the episode 7, the episode that hasn't aired yet. And I won't spoil anything. There is a description of a Klingon wedding, a very brief description of a Klingon, like not a comprehensive, just a mention of something that happens in Klingon weddings by a character in this episode. That doesn't sound anything like what we saw in Worf and Dax's Klingon wedding in Deep Space Nine. Is that lore ignorance, or is that a writer being creative and taking the opportunity of writing on a new Star Trek show to add to the lore, to add to the canon, to make it their own, to make up some new shit instead of constantly fucking jacking off with the old shit? I would much rather see people make up new shit and add to Star Trek and add different flavors to it and let us see it from different points of view and different interpretations and how different writers and artists see it and tell it through their voices, than constantly see the same fucking thing over and over and over again. So yeah, the answer is I don't fucking care about lore ignorance. That's a dumb concept that is utterly irrelevant to whether or not the show is any good. And the least important thing to me at all is how much Alex Kurtzman or anybody who works on a Star Trek show knows about the lore. I don't fucking care. What can you tell me about the show you're making right now? It is of no interest of me to quiz you about your knowledge of Star Trek trivia and shit that happened in other shows. That's not important. What's your show about that you're making right now? And why should I care about it? And why should I care about the characters? That's what matters to me. And if it doesn't matter to you, that's fine. That's your right. That's your preference. But I do not give a fuck. And I find it deeply boring. Super chat from Stephen Clenard, midi-chlorians, what you get when writers try to give the fans what they think they want. Yeah, exactly. And that was even worse because that was the guy who invented the whole thing. That was George Lucas saying, what if we explain where the Force comes from? Okay, go for it, George. I don't know if it's going to be the right thing, but you can give it a shot. Here's one from Kino 4119. How many different weddings are there in human culture? How many different ways of doing things in general? It's not like we see everything in Trek. Who's to say what's lore appropriate? Exactly. Even if you are like a lore maven. Like if you see a Romulan drinking something, it doesn't have to be Romulan ale. Make up a new thing. Like one of the things I liked, one of the little touches in Starfleet Academy that I liked, there's a scene in an I think episode 4 maybe. It's the public speaking episode, the debate club episode. And there's like a little plot in there for Jaden, the Klingon character, where there's a thing called warrior stew, Klingon warrior stew, that he's never eaten because you're not supposed to eat it unless you've been in battle. And then then you've earned the privilege of eating it, right? That's completely made up for this show. It's never been mentioned in any other Star Trek show. They made it up. They added a new thing. They could have said something about fucking blood wine or war. They could have made that the food that was important. They didn't. They made up their own thing. That's what everybody should do. So that you're not looking up you're not like Googling shit. You're not looking shit up on Memory Alpha. What's the name of the Klingon food? you know? Make up your own fucking shit. It's your show. And they meant, like, I think they mentioned, like, you know, roke egg blood pie and God, like, there's, you know, some dialogue that refers to that, but it's not important. The thing that's important to the story is a thing they made up for this show. It's not something that's drawn from the fucking lore. Who gives a fuck? If that's all you care about, then just go watch the old shit and jerk off. That's what you want to do. Watch them talk about just listen for the references that you will recognize. Listen for the familiar names and places and whatever, and just, you know, do that until you come, and then you'll get what you need. Because you're obviously not interested in characters and story. You're interested in trivia and jacking off. So go ahead. It's a free country for the moment still. So go watch and immerse yourself in the lore and the trivia and fucking jack off and have a good life. I would just prefer the people who make the show don't do that. That's all. Anyway, let me do the wrap up, and exactly, Kino. Do that until you come. Prosthetic head. No, consistency and attention to details over 60 years across multiple creative regimes, across multiple shows. No, it doesn't fucking matter. Consistency within an individual show matters, sure. That's how you have characterization. That's how you have storytelling. That's how you have long-term plot developments. You establish what matters in your show that you're making, and you keep it as consistent as you can as you tell the story, as you grow your characters, as you unspool what happens in your show, both in an episode by episode basis and on a long-term basis. But does that mean that everything in your show has to be 100% consistent with what happened on Classic Trek or TNG or Deep Space Nine? Fuck no. Especially if your show is set hundreds of years later. Like, that's the other thing. It's not just that it's a new show, a completely different show made by completely different people than the ones that made the shows in the 80s and the 90s. The show itself in the fictional timeline takes place hundreds of years after almost everything else. So no, it doesn't have to be consistent with a fucking thing. No. Who gives a fuck? Like, who decided that what makes something Star Trek is perfect internal consistency between every single show? Like, it's not Star Trek if there's a female Jem'Hadar? Like, that's disqualifying? Or if the ship doesn't look a certain way, that's disqualifying? Or if the characters are a certain age, that's disqualifying? Or if the captain sits in a chair a certain way, it's not real Star Trek? Can you pick a more boring, mundane, pedantic reason for disqualifying it as Star Trek? Fuck. Like, I'm here to watch a TV show. I'm here to watch a TV show and get involved in a story. Not to look for inconsistencies with other shows that I watched when I was a fucking teenager. Jesus fucking Christ. But again, if that's your thing, go forth and be happy. But that's the least interesting, fulfilling way of watching a TV show or a movie or engaging with any kind of art that I can imagine. Okay, since I've been ranting so long, another super chat came in from Greg Gildersleeve. Thank you, my friend. It used to be that fans explained inconsistencies instead of complaining about them. Where's the creativity in being a fan? Yeah, what happened to fucking headcanon? Again, that's not how I approach it. That's not how I watch it. I usually don't care, so I never even bothered to come up with a headcanon. But people still do that, and people used to do it all the time. They did it for the fucking Klingon thing before Enterprise wasted 2 episodes of its final season to explain it. If it bothered somebody, if somebody was watching the show and they noticed that the Klingons in TOS looked different than the Klingons in the movies and the later shows, if they felt like they needed to explain it, which I never did, but if somebody else did, they just made something up. They didn't say, well, it's wrong. It's wrong. They shouldn't look that way. Whoever made this show obviously had lore ignorance. Like, what the fuck? Was it lore ignorance when the appearance of Trills completely changed from their first appearance in TNG to Jadzia Dax showing up in Deep Space Nine? Was it just that Michael Westmore and the people who designed that makeup had lore ignorance, or did they make a creative decision for their show? When they adjusted the look of Worf's makeup throughout TNG, when his little forehead ridges looked noticeably different in later seasons than they did in season 1. Is that just they just had lore ignorance, or did they make a creative decision for their show? No, it's just, like I said, if that's how you approach it, that's how you approach it. I am so fucking glad I don't approach it like that, because it seems fucking joyless to me. It seems absolutely fucking joyless. I would much rather like or not like a show, critique a show, decide whether it works for me or not based on the story and the characters and the plot and the things that the creators of that show are attempting to do and either, in my opinion, succeeding or failing at doing, rather than looking for shit that might be different from something that was established in another show. I just wouldn't watch if that was all I got out of it. Like, if that's all I got out of it, I wouldn't fucking watch. Because what is that? That's not a story. That's not art. That's not something that means anything to you, like in your heart or in your mind. That's just grading it like a test. And I already said I don't want to be a fucking teacher. Anyway, Worf's head ridges were plastic surgery. He's delicate about. See, there you go. Headcanon. Anyway, I've been promising it for but I keep getting dragged back in. Warp, Brian Baker, Warp 12 and TOS. Yeah, the warp factors make no sense. The fucking star dates, especially in TOS, star dates make no fucking sense. Who cares? That's not what it's about. We already talked earlier in the chat, one of the patron questions about how time dilation, how the shows completely ignore multiple really important real life factors that would affect space travel if it was real. They just ignore it because it would affect their ability to tell a story that would be relatable to people and consistent in the ways that would affect how people are able to engage with the story. It's not a realistic portrayal of space travel at all. Who gives a shit? That's not what it's about. Aliens aren't going to look like that. Aliens aren't going to look like human beings with like prosthetics glued to their heads. That's not realistic at all. Who gives a fucking shit? Lieutenant Savick looks like a completely different person from Star Trek 2 to Star Trek 3. Who gives a fucking shit? Anyway, Kirak with a member message. I fell asleep after I submitted my questions, but you are still here. I have a curious question for you. No judgment, but I am curious why you hate fan fictional episodes yet. Okay, I'll get back to that after I do my wrap up, okay? Time to end the show, everybody. Got a little worked up there. Just that lore ignorance thing just makes me want to put my fist through a wall. I am so tired of that. That is so fucking tedious to me. Anyway, so before I get back to the live chat and answer a few final questions, if you enjoy this thing I do here on YouTube, if you like occasionally hearing me go off about people who are overly attached to lore and canon and Star Trek and that kind of shit, and you like it, just the general kind of thing I do most of the time, where I talk about whatever I talk about. If you enjoy this YouTube thing I do and you would like to help me continue doing it, you can become a supporter of the channel by becoming a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives, or by becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, which is right here on the YouTube page. And either way, whether you become a patron or a member at any level, from $1 a month on up to whatever level of support you think you can afford and you think I'm worth, One of the benefits you can take advantage of is you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams. And those are the questions I answer in the first part of the show. And if you decide to become a patron and a member, which some people have done, I don't expect that or ask for that. But if you do, if you want, you can submit 2 questions for each Ask Away. That's just a little thing I offer to show my appreciation to those of you who have gone above and beyond and become, and not only are viewers and watchers and likers and sharers and commenters and chatters, but have decided to become a supporter of the channel on a consistent basis as a patron or a member. I really, really appreciate all of you who do that. I couldn't do this without you. Also, don't forget that if you enjoy the YouTube thing, you might also enjoy the podcasts that I am a part of. I am a regular on 2 podcasts that are a part of the Lemmy Listen family of podcasts. There's Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason Harding and I take a look at a classic film and see if it deserves whatever reputation it has, be it good or bad. Our most recent episode is about the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, one of my very favorite MCU films. And our next episode that we haven't recorded yet, that we're recording next weekend, is going to be about The Notebook, which is not a movie I'm looking forward to watching, but hopefully it'll get us a good podcast episode. So look forward to that as well. And the other podcast I'm a part of is the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast, where myself and Jason and our friend Amanda Billings play original characters that we have created that kind of exist in the background of actual Star Trek shows, like sort of canonical Star Trek stuff is happening off screen, if you will, while we have our own adventures. And it's a ton of fun to do. If you like Star Trek, if you like funny Star Trek, satirical Star Trek stuff, I think you will enjoy the Ensign's Log as well. So check that out. And also don't forget charitylinks.page, which is a resource that our friend Some Random Geek maintains with GoFundMes and Ko-Fis and PayPal links and begging bowl type things for friends of ours who need a helping hand, who are in a little bit of financial stress and need some help to put food on the table or get their bills paid or pay off some medical debt or whatever their issue may be. So if you have a few extra dollars left over that you would like to put toward a good cause, please consider helping out some of our friends who are listed in charitylinks.page. And thanks as always to Some Random Geek for creating that and maintaining that and reminding us of that as often as they do. Okay, last few questions. Don't tell me what don't tell me what to do. 255 AD. Don't fucking tell me to stop talking on my own fucking show. I don't give a fuck. If you find it irritating, then fucking stop watching, man. Don't fucking tell me to stop talking on my own fucking show. What the fuck? If you don't like it, that's fine. Don't fucking watch. You don't get to fucking tell me to stop talking on my own fucking show. What the fuck? What the fuck? Who the fuck? No offense. I'm not mad about, like, who the fuck are you to tell me to stop talking? Don't watch. Turn it off. Anyway, thank you, Stephen. Okay, what was Kirok's question? Why do you hate fan fictional episodes? Yes, some overdid it, but occasionally, why is it a bother? Well, it wouldn't be as much of a bother if it was just occasionally. You know, it wouldn't be as much, but I feel like it's become more than an occasional thing. It's become a thing that happens all the time. Like if it was back in the 90s, of Deep Space Nine did Trials and Tribulations. Okay, it's like a one-time thing. They had some fun. It was clever. It was cute. But for the most part, but that doesn't speak for the whole show. Like that's not what the whole thing is about. It was just a little thing to have a little fun. It was an exception. It was a special thing. It's no longer a special thing. Now it's like a thing that is just expected. It happens all the time. And I think it's creative death. I don't think it's good writing. I don't think it's creative. I don't think it's original. I find it pandering. I find it insulting. I find it lazy. And I just don't dig it. Like, I just don't dig it. So I think that's the answer. It's 255 AD. It's fine. I'm not mad at you. I'm just for the record. Like, if you don't like it, if you don't like what I'm saying, just watch something else. Like, no hard feelings. But nobody gets to tell me to shut up on my fucking show. Like, that's it. That's all there is to it. That's just, I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I got a little heated with you and I was a little pissed off. I'm not mad at you. Like, as soon as the show is over, I'm going to go have a snack and watch TV, and I'm not going to think about this. But for the record, like, if I'm going off on a rant or I'm stuck on a topic or whatever, and you don't like it, that's fine. That's completely fair. Just don't watch or talk about something else in the chat. People talk about shit other than what I'm talking about in the chat all the time. That's fine. But you don't tell me how to run my fucking show. Nobody does. Like, this is my deal here. You know, like, you don't get to tell me to not to talk about stuff. Okay. Anyway, Amos, we've dropped into the Steve gets harassed on live stream Friday. Yeah, no, it's not. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. Steve, I love that Stephen Clenard is here for all of this, by the way. I am so entertained by the fact that he's like, yeah, keep going, keep going, man. No, I'm going to wrap it up. It's the end of the show. We're almost half an hour past. I usually like to end these at 8:00 my time or thereabouts. And we've gone a little long because there were a lot of patron and member questions. And also I kind of went off on a rant a couple times there. But no, you didn't offend me, 255 AD. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. And honestly, even if you did offend me, it's fine. Like, it's fine. We're good. I'm not mad at you. I'm not going to think about it after this. I'm not going to be like, that motherfucker told me what to do in my own live stream. Like, I don't care. I don't care. It's just, but again, just for the record, it's, you know, you don't have to watch. It's okay. It won't hurt my feelings. I do need to get 2 pizza sandwiches, Darth Eddie. Sheets doesn't really have like mega size, especially, I guess I usually get a half of a pizza sub. I guess I could get 2. I don't think I will though. I don't really like to overeat. It just doesn't make me feel good. I'll probably just get a regular size pizza sub and like a little thing of fries, like a Coke, like a Diet Coke. I'll probably just do that. Anyway, thank you all. Yes, keep poking the bear, Stephen. He's chanting for lower day. You're just pushing my buttons, man. No, I'm out of here. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for hanging out and hanging in there despite my rant that I think not everybody loved as much as Stephen Clenard did. But I liked it. It felt good to say. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Happy Valentine's Day tomorrow to those of you who are celebrating. And I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.